at 5:30. So the clock is a little slow and back. Jen, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jen. Roll call, please, Cindy.
Trustee Conan. Here. Trustee Montalto.
Here.
Trustee Lindy. Here. President Michaels.
Here.
At this time, Trustee Heron is absent, but we have a quorum.
And then, if there's no objections, Ryan Walter would like to attend by remote conference call. Any objections by the village board? Okay, hearing none. Ryan, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I'm here.
You can hear us okay?
I can.
Okay, great. I'd like to open up a public hearing for Hannaford Farm Lot 69 Annexation Agreement Amendment. Any comments? Okay. Next is the Hannaford Farm Lot 106 Annexation Agreement Amendment. Any comments? Okay. Yes, close that. Presentation of amendments to the Northeast Airport TIF number 2. Keith?
Sir. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you guys for having me here this evening. I'm going to give a short presentation and then take questions, however you'd like to direct them in regards to the amended TIF number 2, also known as the Northeast Airport TIF. This TIF has actually been around since 2015. And what we're going through, I know most folks are probably here for this purpose. So by show of hands, who got a letter, a certified piece of mail by chance? Did anybody? So was it just from a taxi district you would have? So do you have property in the proposed TIF district area? Okay. So that means you'll be included in the area. Anybody get a non-certified piece of mail? Just regular mail, because we also sent notice to those folks that are 750 foot from our TIF district area, notifying them of the amended TIF as well. And so, do you folks have a map? You guys kind of have an idea of what we're kind of talking about here TIF-wise. I'm just going to take you through a little history on this TIF and kind of talk a little bit about what we're doing here, just in layman's terms. Basically, back in 2015, the village created the Northeast Airport TIF. The idea behind that TIF at the time was to develop a business park and corporate campus-like setting designed to help stimulate development in and around the airport area. The idea behind it was to use TIF dollars for everything from extension of Municipal Drive from Wheeler Boulevard to Wheeler Road, business park improvements, do things with fiber optics, help with resurfacing, widening of streets, traffic improvements, beautification, maintenance of right-of-ways, and all sorts of public improvements. And those will continue today. Those goals and objectives as part of the plan remain. But what happened over time is development patterns change, especially in an area that is growing. Obviously, this has nothing to do with any sort of the interstate TIF whatsoever, as we pretty quickly know. But we've recently annexed some property up north that was not currently in the TIF district area, and so the village can now use TIF monies to help make improvements to that area, fund some public infrastructure, and get that more development ready. It included the purchase of some ground to help extend some roads, kind of run that kind of furniture. I don't know if you guys know our map over in that direction. Also, there were some areas that we missed when we first did a TIF, along Municipal Drive. We also want to see this appropriately developed here. This is the little corporate office business park that hasn't quite taken off like we'd like. And then the properties down in the south, which I have a feeling most folks would be here, are about. Basically, the areas in blue are being added to the TIF. The areas in yellow are being taken from TIF 1, which exists just west of here. and being included into TIF 2. The reason we do that is because those TIFs did not touch each other. And when TIFs are contiguous to each other, that allows the village to move monies from one TIF to the next to fund a variety of improvements. TIF 1 is slowly but surely becoming more and more successful, generating more and more money, creating more and more jobs out in that direction. Generates, I think it's exceeded this, Matt, and I'll put you on the spot, but it's $200,000 a year, maybe even a tad more than that, and going well. This TIF number 2 generates about $50,000 a year. Not a whole lot of development has occurred, but there's probably a lot more needs in TIF number 2 than in TIF number 1 as well. So what we wanted to do through all of it was be able to move monies from one TIF to the next to help fund the improvements in TIF number 2 area. So now that they'll touch, now that enables the village to do just that. And likewise, so if development occurs in TIF number 2, we can move monies into TIF number 1 as well. So there was a multitude of reasons as to adjust this TIF, kind of killing a couple of birds with one stone with one amendment, and that's kind of how we got to this point in time. Some of those goals and objectives, some things on the immediate home front that are going to be solved with this TIF. It's purely money, a way to fund redevelopment projects. The TIF has nothing to do with how your land is zoned, how your property is used, or anything along those lines. Your comprehensive plan and your zoning regulations are going to dictate all of those things. The TIF has nothing to do with that. The TIF is simply here to help fund some public improvements, of which some, I know one that we've talked about on numerous occasions is at this intersection. At this intersection here, we wanted to do some more public safety, do a little bit better job with lighting and some crosswalks. Now that we touched TIF 2 or TIF number 1, we can access a few more revenues now and create that ability to do that. And like I also said, up north, we can also fund some additional public improvements. We can extend some sanitary sewer lines and do more by way of fiber optics and whatnot with these TIF monies as well. And so it really is simple. It's what we would, in my world, my TIF world, it would be a very minor amendment. We're not creating a new TIF. We're extending. We're just expanding the existing TIFs of this TIF. All TIFs, when they're established, have a 23-year life. This one's been around since 2015, and so the life of this TIF has would end in about 2038. Other things that we've talked about, the uses, create buffer zones, continue to see open space, continue to abide by all FAA guidelines and airport regulations, so nothing's going to change along those lines. It really is just a matter of doing a better job of utilizing our resources to fund that many more improvements in the village that I think everybody in this room is going to stand to benefit from. And so I don't know if I have a ton to say. I think I got it. Most of the properties actually are tax exempt. 18 of the 30 are actually tax exempt. They don't generate anything. But regardless, that means the village can use money. Because money is generated in a TIF, must be spent in a TIF also. I should note that as well. Let's see. You know, we did talk to our taxing districts. No taxing districts aren't thrilled about TIF, but we didn't have any major. Our friends in the fire district had some concerns. But I think everybody kind of understands kind of what we're trying to do here, just to do a better job of utilizing TIF revenues to fund, to further the village and fund additional public improvements. And so I'm not sure how we handle. I'm happy to answer questions here or elsewhere. Or
any questions for Keith? Keith, yeah.
I don't know if what would be appropriate. I don't know if you formally open the public hearing.
Okay. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing? Or make the motion? Second. All those in favor of opening up the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Opposed, the same sign. Okay, public hearing's open. If you have any questions for Keith or the board, would you please stand up, and you don't have to state your name or address, just try.
Hello, board. Hello, Keith. Okay. So I've got a question for you. In terms of the redevelopment and plotting that was done, what was the reasoning for including the prairie and conservation lands that are included in TIF 2?
not the only properties. It really was just to have a cleaner boundary, a clean boundary. And what we didn't want to see happen is if for some case over the next 20 years or so, that some sort of public improvement would need to be necessary, whether it be flood control, sanitary sewer, extension of utilities, that area would be in the TIF and we would be able to use monies. Not for any sort of redevelopment purpose or anything along those lines.
Except for the fact that you can't take it through that area without the Army Corps of Engineers.
I agree.
So,
I mean, yeah.
with that being the case, I still don't understand why you would have included those lands in there. There's no public improvements that can be done with that land. There's no connection that can be done with that land.
What about like other things impacting flood control, stormwater, all those types of things? Sure. Really.
So that land is already meant for stormwater control for the Prairie Run associations.
Right.
So the surrounding properties do benefit from that already because of the fact that those basins exist.
Okay.
So I don't, again, I still don't understand as to why they were included.
I think it was stated why, clear boundary, and if there is a need for the future, then it's already included. And we would have to go to the Army Corps to get necessary permits and talk to the HOA, so it's.
So you mentioned the fact that there's a clear boundary. Clean boundary. So the boundary that's already there between TIF 2 and the adjoining properties, you don't need to include that land in order to get a clean boundary. The connecting properties to the west already provide you that when you include them.
I would say it'd be a little bit awkward, but I mean, the bottom line is this: I'm not suggesting that all kinds of thought went into inclusion of this ground, but what we don't want to find ourselves in is the position that we're in now: is that a property that's not in our TIF we can't utilize TIF funds to help it or make public improvements or. So
taking the contract.
I mean, because it's not an easy task. If you guys amend your TIF again, one parcel, you're going to, the area is going to qualify, you're going to do an eligibility study, you're going to have to amend your plan, you have to notify your tax district, you're going to hold another public hearing. It's going to be a 6-month process, just to include one piece of ground. And so we don't know what's going to happen over a 20-year time frame. That who knows what can change, development patterns can change, flood control, erosion control, all those types of things can happen, and I think we're just trying to do some preventative
So
types of things.
if you were to include the parcels that you did, why not include the rest of the prairie land?
The subdivision?
No, the rest of the prairie land. The prairie land continues to the southeast. You missed 2 parcels in the inclusion on the original plan.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Behind the
So,
subdivision?
Oh, behind?
That's what I'm
Oh.
so you would miss
Is it easier on that board there?
14, 20, 275, 001, and 14,
Yeah,
20,
I know.
275, 02.
Honestly, I don't have an answer for it.
So, taking your argument, you guys still end up revisiting this potentially later on because of that missed property. If the reality is that you want to include that for the water retention, public good argument.
I don't know. I mean,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we couldn't, to add parcels at this point in time additional, we have to take 5 steps back.
yes.
But it's not up for approval tonight. Is it correct that if removing any parcels, if it makes sense, the process could still go forward on the schedule? Is that accurate?
Correct. Well, yeah.
And I guess what I'm getting to is, potentially if the gentleman wanted to, indicate, tonight, whatever, specific parcels that you believe could be removed and still accomplish the goals. I think the board could take a look at that between tonight and whatever night comes back for approval. Rather than, I I don't know that anybody's prepared to get into the weeds so much tonight if any particular parcel is critical for the contiguity.
Yeah,
But I think it's something that we can take a look at.
because I mean, as a president of my HOA, I've got individuals that are asking me about the
Sure.
TIF. They're concerned that our lands are included in the TIF. So by virtue, that's the reason why I'm here.
Understood.
I'm curious as to what it means. Does that mean that the underdeveloped section of our prairie, which originally was planned to have a set of public paths put in, would we benefit in some way from having that TIF? Would we be able to allow for that public path to be put in that space so that we would provide green space and for the greater good of the community? Would we benefit in that way from having that done? If not, I don't particularly see a reason as to
Sure.
why our land would be included, aside from, as you had mentioned, the inner lines.
The plan does call for the village to have the ability to do those things like that.
Let me ask you this, because, and I don't have that map in front of me right now, but he's talking about a marshland, wetland type area.
Sure.
I mean, an example like Mallory Point 4 or 5 years ago, when we had to go through the wetlands with piping to stop flooding in a neighborhood. Would TIF money be able to use to do that, going through that?
Yeah.
So that's your answer. If there is a flooding issue in your neighborhood down the road, and it's caused by that, TIF money could be used to help that, as opposed to a special assessment like we had to pay.
I kind of gathered that that was going to be the case. I was just, again, curious.
Okay.
Because it's like, why part but not all, or the contrary argument, why all? So.
It was that identified as separate parcels that it's not.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
so
that was.
It's not all one parcel, even though the association owns.
Right.
That could have been part of
6
the.
of them.
Could have been. Site.
In conjunction with that, why not the parcel for the village lift station that's there?
That one, I don't know why, to be honest with you. That one is a small parcel, I'm not sure why it's done.
May have been hard to click on it, so.
To be honest with you. That was one that, by the time we got to this point, I don't know why it's done.
Any other questions? Yeah, please.
I'm just curious, you're planning for the unknown, but what is the eventual plan for this property? Are you looking at allowing an industrial piece putting in there versus residential, or versus the recreational use for the land? I'm not sure why you're putting this TIF together for monies.
Which land?
What's that?
Which land?
The TIF proposal, what is the plan for this land that is not planned for?
There's no change in land use. It's just to take the increment that we're receiving from the improvements and be able to put it back into that area. When we're able to repave Aero Industrial Drive and things like that. And there's some interest in extending sanitary sewer out there and so those are projects that could be funded this
But
way.
if there's going to be sanitary sewer, would that imply that there's going to be more development, or no?
Well, hopefully out in the industrial park, but some of the current tenants out in Aero Industrial Park have expressed some interest in receiving sanitary. So it wouldn't be imminent right here. It would be more in the areas already designated commercial.
Correct.
So helping the residents that are currently sewer and, well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, out of curiosity, with the fact that the lands that are actually being added are actually owned by the city of Aurora, what sort of agreement, if any, is there with the city of Aurora for the actual TIF, and how those lands are going to be used in conjunction with the airport as it pertains to the TIF itself?
Yeah, Keith, can you address that with the city of Aurora? There's been no plans brought in by the city, and they would have to go through, if they're to do any work, and they want to connect the our water and our sewer, we'd come into a formal agreement, but I forget.
Well, it's one thing to be owned by the, hold on. I gotta get into the nitty gritty of what lands are owned by the city of Aurora, I'm not sure. It has to be in our corporate boundary. So whether or not it's owned by the city or not,
I have a map that shows which properties are owned by the city.
If I may, I think the short answer is there's been zero conversation with Aurora about TIF benefits being extended to the city of Aurora for any development out there.
Okay.
None. There was one point in time where on some of the city of Aurora's properties south of 30, they were contemplating a solar array field, whatever you call it.
Yeah, we were notified of it.
Yeah, my understanding is that that was cost prohibitive because they're too far away from whatever power lines, so that they're not currently pursuing that. Beyond that, we have had just a very, and not related to that land, actually at the other end of the airport, conversation regarding utility extension that, just the preliminary, and that they're, they continue to look at ways to develop airport property, and they do get their utilities through the village. So, but nothing. We've had no conversation with them in regards to them requesting any TIF benefits or the village offering any.
How about for BDM Holdings that owns the 3 series of parcels that are being added to the north?
Which one?
BDM Holdings.
That's the one up by the middle school, correct? Yeah, they annexed in to be included in the TIF district, but we've had no conversations as far as any imminent development plans, no conversations about specific TIF benefits, other than actually village initiated, was alluded to earlier, the village did purchase a parcel in the industrial park to the south near the Nick's Furniture Building. The idea being that that could be an alternative access point to that site, so that if it does develop as some type of light industrial type use, the idea would be that the primary entrance to that property would be through the existing industrial park rather than off Harbor Road near the middle school.
Do you have plans to rezone it from the estate zoning that it's zoned as right now, then?
Only if they would bring in a plan. So they would need to put in a preliminary plan and have the village consider it. So nothing's been presented at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it was brought in, I believe, under the default zoning, which is the kind of the least intensive use, but it has been the intention and conversation for at least 10 years that would be something other than residential, that it would be essentially an extension of the industrial park. So that idea still remains. I'd say the key to that was to, depending upon what the use is, to try to reduce traffic on Harbor as much as possible.
Because right now it's zoned as E1.
Correct. Yeah, that's standard how property is brought in unless there's an existing development plan.
And property cannot be included in a TIF unless it's in our corporate boundaries, so that's why we brought it in as an E1. And that was recently done at the request of the property owner. We apologize. There's a lot of technical jargon being thrown around, and we're not trying to confuse anybody. It's just how the TIF ordinance is written and planning and zoning. So we apologize. Is there, Bill?
I don't have any questions. I would like the opportunity to make a
Please.
statement that
Yep.
I've heard.
Yep.
Sorry if I come up and do that.
Yeah, please. Chief Perkins, thank you.
My name is
Go ahead.
I appreciate, Sean, the opportunity to be able to talk to you and the trustees this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Perkins. I'm the chief of the Sugar Grove Fire Protection District. Also, for those of you who don't know, the fire district is a completely separate entity from the village. Our district covers 34 square miles. It encompasses all of Sugar Grove Township that's not within the municipal limits of the city of Aurora and village of North Aurora. It includes a portion of the village of Montgomery and the majority of the village of Sugar Grove. We protect about 15,000 permanent residents and an exponential number of visitors and travelers. We protect several miles of Route 47, Route 56, Route 35, 5 miles of Interstate 88, as well as the Aurora Municipal Airport and the main campus of the Johnson Community College. Our district strives to foster an environment of cooperation and understanding with municipal officials for the villages that we protect. However, we feel that we have a responsibility and an obligation to speak out when issues arise that could have a detrimental effect to the services that we provide to all of our residents, not just those within the village of Sugar Grove. Our district derives about 92% of its revenues from real estate taxes. We do not receive state sales tax, we do not receive local sales tax, motor fuel tax, utility tax, or local government distributed funds. Creation of any new or the expansion in addition to any current TIF districts will once again divert these much needed property taxes from the fire district into the TIF fund for over 20 years. And obviously we did a little bit of history, but some time ago the village hosted a meeting at the library that discussed what TIF districts were and how they get created. My feeling was when I left that the majority of the people in attendance there were somewhat opposed to the creation of any more TIF districts. From that discussion, they also talked about the requirements, and one of them was that the area needs to be blank. We at the fire district believe that the Sugar Grove area is a beautiful location and struggle to find anything that we could possibly describe as being blank. Another thing I did talk about is that properties, in order to be able to go into a TIF, have to meet a but-for requirement. And basically what that says is if it wasn't but for the TIF district and the incentives, the development in the area would not occur. For those of you also not aware, the Joint Review Board, as talked about before, gave us a draft version of TIF number 2 back in February of 2015, and then through meetings and public hearings passed the ordinance back in May of 2015. Located within the boundaries of TIF 2 is the property located at 119 West Galena. That's the Sugar Grove Living Center. That is a 60-unit, 60,000 square foot facility. The plan reviews for that property were held in September of 2014, and the pre-construction meeting was held in November of 2014, with construction beginning shortly thereafter. The building was fully completed for occupancy by October of 15. This building was in the middle of construction prior to being placed into the TIF district, and obviously would have failed the but-for requirement. But for whatever reason, it was still placed within the TIF district. Of the main parcel's nearly $41,000 tax bill in 2019, the fire district received $8.52 in real estate taxes. In 2018, it was $8.69. In 17, $8.87. And 2016 was the best year at $9.23. The district understands and does not want to make light of any other government entity's financial problems, struggles, and needs. But the proposed expansion, in addition to any TIF district, will not put any more students in the schools, will not require increased staffing at the library, will not require more parks to be maintained. But from the first shovelful of dirt that's moved, it does affect the fire department. From having to respond for construction site accidents, traffic accidents in the area, emergency medical services calls, responding for fire alarms, the training that's required for these facilities that are built, and for pre-planned inspections, the fire department will be affected. Any increase in call volume will take away from our ability to provide quality service to all residents of the district. We recognize that and have been told that if there's a need for special equipment, that possibly TIF funds can be utilized to purchase that equipment. But as we all know, it doesn't matter how much equipment you have if you don't have the personnel to staff it. And staffing is not a qualified TIF expense. Since 2010, the fire district has seen a 35% increase in call volume. This is during a post-recession time where we've seen minimal development and the call volume still increased by 350 calls annually. Future development without the associated real estate tax funding would hinder the district from providing proper emergency services. Now, we've also been told, and was explained tonight, that by expanding the current TIF district, it will allow the two TIF districts to be contiguous, which would allow the interuse of funds between the two TIF districts. Currently, TIF 2 has a negative balance of about $133,000. This was due in part to these funds being used to purchase the property on Heartland Drive that is not within the TIF district. It was to allow access for the two parcels adjacent to that property, which also are not within the TIF district, with the theory that if that parcel behind our development It would ease the concern of the public and get the traffic basically off of Harder Road and enter through there. But back in 2018, in a board report, it stated that the property being purchased by the village and that the parcels behind it, once annexed into the village, would be incorporated into the TIF district. So if that's the case, I'm confused as far as why the need for the joint review board approval, why the need for the public hearing, why the need for any of this, because it's obvious that the decision to include that in the TIF district was made back in 2018 when the property was purchased. We understand that the village, wants to expand development, but at what cost? The Sugar Grove Base Hardware and Pet Supply, the Sugar Grove Senior Living Center, the AutoZone, the Culvers, the Dunkin' Donuts, the Grove Stop BP, the Prairie Point Assisted Living Center, the Chelsea Commons Senior Living Center, all found Sugar Grove an attractive place to build without the need to be in a TIF district. There has been no building within either TIF district since their inception. We hope that the board recognizes our concerns. We're trying to be good neighbors, but we have people we have to protect. We have to provide them with emergency services and cannot do that with constant reduced funding. We just implore the trustees not to create any new TIF districts, not to allow the expansion or addition of any current TIF districts. Otherwise, before you know it, every vacant parcel within the village of Sugar Grove is going to be in a TIF district. I appreciate you giving me the time. I hope you understand the concerns that we have, and I hope that when it comes up for a vote, that you vote accordingly. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other public comments during the public hearing? Okay. All right. Yes?
Will the chief be able to submit that for the record?
Sure.
I scribbled some notes on it, so when we fix it, and I'll send it
Okay.
to Brian in the morning.
Thank you. I'd like to read it myself.
Yeah.
Sean, I have one question.
Uh-huh.
How many properties in the TIF district in the two TIF districts we presently have, how many have we generated into into those properties?
I'm not sure how many have been developed.
How many have been developed?
I think maybe just the one being the senior living center.
Not the other one.
Yeah. And it's already 5 years old.
So we're not encouraging developers to go into a TIF district?
We are. We're trying to get them to come, and that's one of the tools that ourselves and other communities are using to attract commercial and other developments.
Well, if we still have if we have two, why do we need another one? We've got two TIF districts that is not generating anything for us except for the senior living. Why?
We're not creating a new one. We're just combining. We're amending. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And making it bigger, right?
Yes.
So
Making it
But
bigger.
also
which is-
reducing TIF 1, honestly.
no.
You are reducing the size of one.
I don't know if you're here earlier, but it's so we can move the funds back and forth and make improvements between the two. And one of the items that the board's considering is extending the sanitary sewer out to Aero Industrial Park. And with the gap that was between TIF 2 and TIF 1, by combining them, we'll be able to make those improvements. Or whether it's fiber optic services or stormwater management. There's some talk of extending the pedestrian crossway here across Route 30, which is a lot of money to make it safer so people can use the pedestrian path on the north side.
I mean, I understand the argument there, but at the same point, the village could do all of those necessary municipal improvements for our community without the TIF. You don't have to have a TIF in order to make those particular improvements. Now, what you do need a TIF for, on the other hand, is if you had a budgetary shortfall and can't produce that budget or those funds to be able to do
Yeah, we debated it all day. That, you know, there's not necessarily the foresight, but these are expenses that go beyond the typical budget process or typical funding that the village generates from year to year, like the pedestrian path. If we want to extend that from the south side to the north side of Route 30. We wanted to do that back in 2009 when municipal in Galena was extended, and IDOT told us we could not do it. Well, now they're encouraging us to do it. We've had a lot of residents request it, and it's running somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 or more, and that's an unbudgeted item. It would be hard for the general fund to support something like that. So with current development, with new development in the TIF area, then we're able to use those funds and spend.
Understood, but any reasonable household, they say, okay, I want a television. No, I don't have the ability to purchase the television now. Let's save for the television.
Yeah.
Why would the city not do the same?
We do, but you missed our meeting back in December where.
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, you didn't? Where we talked about the road fund?
I was fully aware of.
Were you at that meeting? Okay, so you know that annually, to keep the roads up to speed, we should be spending roughly $1 million, $1.2 million. And currently our budget only allows us to spend about $500,000. So there's a shortfall. So it's always that give and take. It was like when the village had the park district, or the parks property. Every year it came up, do we put more into the parks and we had cement under slides and under merry-go-rounds, or do you take that money and put it into the streets that are falling apart? So that's when the park district was generated. By having the TIF, we're able to take funds that are generated from the certain area and put them back into that area. And it's not taking away from any resident, it's a tax that's being paid.
All that does is rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Well, but some of those improvements might not ever be done. And then it could limit.
If you didn't have the funds to pay for it back then, how do you have the funds to pay for it now? You don't.
Through the TIF.
You still took the money from the general fund, the ability to move those funds forward and for you to make general improvements and actually maintain our infrastructure and the rest of our community. And instead you chose to use it for what?
No.
A small project?
That's not what TIF funds are being used for.
That's what it sounds like they're being used for.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, I think that we all need to keep in mind the primary purpose of the TIF is economic development. And
Which isn't being done.
Yes.
So can I ask, pardon my ignorance,
No.
I'm trying to understand the big picture because I understand there's this give and take, right? We're trying to make this all work, but then, as we listen to the impact that this is having, it's actually, if I'm understanding correctly, generating another loss or another cost. And so I'm curious, how do we make up for what the fire department is not receiving by using this strategy? And where does it end, where we quit growing so much that now we don't have an emergency response system that can really...
Right. Well, just like the village grows, and every time it snows, we have to send out our public works employees to plow the roads. It's a loss, but it's something that we figure in, and we do collect money, and the fire district's able to charge for ambulance calls and bill Medicare for different services. So there are other services or other means for the fire district, but what we're hoping is that you have that multiplier effect, that you do generate commercial development, and that generates a multiplier effect where you get other retail to come in. And that's what we've seen throughout the community. That's why we've seen the development on the west side of 47. We were able to get about $6 million in funds from the federal government to extend Galena to the west, and then we extended Division down. And so everything from Walgreens north on the west side of 47 has basically developed because of the foresight of the village and taking funds and putting them back into the community to generate economic development, and therefore the school district, the library district, the fire district have all benefited from that. So that's where we're trying to use these TIF funds to bring in additional businesses that will benefit all the taxing bodies.
Right now, the area doesn't generate hardly anything. It's about $50,000. The majority of that coming by way of the senior living. But the bulk of the properties, all these properties, are generating next to nothing in taxes. So it's hard to say or suggest that we're losing anything. What we're hoping is that the TIF, actually through some of the public improvements that the village ultimately makes, some of the commitments that the private business community makes to the area, winds up increasing our tax base over and above what it is today. And by the time the TIF's over, we all stand to benefit as a result. Right now, we do get a bunch of zero-sum gains. A lot of property not generating anything.
We have to be able to get to that point
I
so
do.
our market survive.
I do.
And that's the problem.
I understand your point, but right now, as we speak, there's nothing to be losing because there's no gain. You guys, you're not generating anything. And so that's the idea, is to use this TIF in order to generate investment into the area. And that's the overall part of the economic development, I think, that Brent talked about, and certainly the mayor's been talking about. That's the name of the game. Use the TIF district in multiple ways to generate some, create some jobs, retain some jobs, make some improvements to public infrastructure to support the development of tax-exempt ground currently. And then when the TIF, hopefully businesses come, and then by the time the TIF is done and over with, all those monies are returned to the tax industry. So that's the idea behind TIF, and that's the sole purpose here. In the meantime, I think a lot of folks stand to benefit from some, because you guys can utilize the monies a little bit better. There's going to be some other public improvements that are going to benefit everybody in this room through public safety, crosswalks, extension of utilities and whatnot. So right now, there's zero. We're arguing over zero until we can start to do a few more things and generate a little more interest in this part of town. It's not like we're tipping. It's not like we tip the Dunkin' Donuts and the Culvers. You know, I would get you on that. I would understand, but that's not what's happening. I mean, look, we all know this area. It's been like that for a few years. The idea is to get it going, and that's what the TIF's all about.
It's been like that for decades. And I think one of the things we have to understand, and a lot of the people in the audience don't understand or not informed of, because they're not at all the meetings, is that property, I've lived in town for 20, going on 26 years now, that property's been vacant that entire time. No one's built there because of the lack of infrastructure there. It's too costly for a business to come in and put in that kind of sanitary system and sewers and fiber optic and all that stuff that we're trying to bring in. And like you say, if it's generating zero revenue in taxes, you're not losing anything now. But it's like putting into a pension plan or a 401k, you're putting a little bit away now, and down the road you're going to reap huge benefits back. And it may take 20 years, but since we started the TIF, we've had people approaching us asking about development there. We've had certain stores asking about starting something there. You know, some of the projects have fallen through because of business reasons or whatever, but we had no interest in that property prior to doing this, and at least it's generating some now. So it could take off, and within the next 10 to 20 years, the other taxing bodies, as well as ourselves, instead of getting pennies a year for taxes, could be getting thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes.
And our plan does allow for us to not only assist the fire district, it's not exactly how they want, I understand that, but we can assist our taxing districts with TIF funds if and when they become better available. And so our plan does allow for that.
Just a question, and I am horrible with maps unless there's road names on them, so this is why I'm asking the question, because I'm not 100% sure of all the property. But when the developer came in and talked about the strip mall between Walgreens and the Senior Living Center, that gentleman, National
Shopping
right, and in that meeting, we were also talking about Cross Galena, and the subject came up of a piece of property that you're going to have problems with that because of water, drainage. Remember that conversation? That the land was not going to be easily developed because of with
He mentioned that,
unstable.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that property anywhere in that, either one of those TIFs?
Walter?
Yes, it's in TIF two.
It's in TIF 2. It's the 40 acres just south of Walgreens.
What I would say is that what we could do in that situation, in order to make that more development friendly,
Right.
we can rebate some monies back to the developer to encourage them to build their building, develop it, fix those issues, those flood control issues, or the stormwater issues.
It was
So that-
unstable ground due to water and drainage.
Correct. And the TIF funds can be used to improve those conditions so that the site becomes more development ready. So that's how the TIF would actually fix those issues, allow that corner, which is, I mean, it's a good site, but obviously it has its negative impacts to it. But that's how the TIF would actually work, and you take a negative situation and move positive through the use of TIF. So you get development, you get the jobs created, the sales tax revenue generated, and also an improved site for the benefit of not only the developer but everybody. That's the idea behind that.
Yes.
So I wasn't here to actually comment on the tip, so excuse me, this is a little ignorant of the situation, but just based on what you've been saying, I'm trying to understand. When you say it's a zero-sum game, it sounds to me like what you're actually saying is the village is going to pay real money up front to improve the infrastructure inside of the TIF area. So those will be real funds that come out of the general fund or someplace, because you have to pay with real money to get things done in order to make the improvements, and the hope that with the TIF district, it will now be attractive enough for development that the developer comes.
Correct.
So it's not a zero-sum game. It's pay and hope.
Typically, we have the developer put in the improvements, and then they're reimbursed through the increment. So no money comes out of the village. The developer puts up the money, and then, like a loan being paid back to them.
Okay, and that's a good use of the TIF. If they're paying taxes and get, they pay up front.
Yeah, correct.
And just a couple more responses to something that you said, and then I do have a question. As far as ambulance billing and Medicare that you get reference to, Medicare pays about $300 some towards an ambulance bill. If you're a Sugar Grove Fire Protection District resident and cannot afford to pay your ambulance bill, we write it off, because you already pay taxes in our district, and we want to take care of our people. So we don't always get paid when we respond. A lot of times we're going on calls that aren't billable, fire alarms, lift assists, and especially when you get to senior living type centers where they require some more assistance. And those are non-billable services that we don't bill our residents for. So it is a losing game. And it's great that if a big project is developed across the street that brings in 300-400 jobs, that's great. If it increases our call volume, and we don't see that money for 23 years, how am I going to increase that in response to that growth? And how am I going to be able to protect the people that live in the south portion of our district if I'm tied up with all of our personnel and property that doesn't generate any tax funds for the district? I have responsibility to everybody within our district. It's just hard when one entity can dictate where the tax dollars for another entity goes. And that's always been our concern. That's why we tried to have Representative Wheeler introduce legislation that eliminates public safety and fire department or fire districts from TIF districts. You know, if you have your municipal fire department and the municipality itself decides that, hey, we want to put this in a TIF district, they know that they're shorting their own fire department, and that's the decision that they make. But we're not governed by the village, we're our own, and we have more people than just village residents. So that's why we have such a concern. And like I said, this is probably the only area that we disagree on and that we have concern with. Otherwise, we always work well with the village. We work well with Public Works. We work excellent with the police department. We want to continue that stuff, but we need to stand up and show you the importance of what even just these minor expansions, because when does it end? Then somebody else annexes close, and we're back in the same boat again, annexing more stuff into a TIF district to where this vacant land that we get $8 a year from now has, a $10 million building on it, and we're still going to get $8 for 23 years. We can't survive on that. And the question I had, I kind of talked about it in my statement, and I didn't catch it, but
Keith.
Yes.
If I'm correct, you had said that TIF funds have to be used in the TIF district, correct? And if I'm correct, that through an inter-TIF loan from TIF 1 to TIF 2, those funds were used to purchase the property on Heartland Drive. Correct.
Yes.
And is that property in Heartland Drive within the TIF district?
It's in tip 2, so
Yes.
that's why there's a loan, and the loan would be paid back.
So the property that's on Heartland is within the TIF district currently?
It is.
No. In the amended TIF it's in. So you already used TIF funds to purchase property outside of the TIF district. Is that correct?
If you could explain.
There was resolutions approved by the board that allowed that purchase, and if TIF is not extended, then that would be paid back to the TIF that the funds were used for. So there were actually three resolutions.
You could use it for that, and then.
There were 3 resolutions passed that day, allowing all of that to happen.
So anything pretty much by resolution can amend TIF districts, is that correct then?
Yeah, we have to go through the same process that we're doing now in order to amend the TIF area.
But to amend what is allowed for TIF districts can be done by referendum, or by, is that what you're saying?
Amending the area is done by ordinance.
So you did by ordinance to amend the ability to use TIF funds for outside of the TIF district?
We did a resolution for an interfund loan, which had
It's
stipulation of payback. So it had a
So
stipulation.
either way, the property on Heartland is not currently within TIF District 2 and is not currently within TIF District 1, but funds from whichever district, doesn't matter to me, were used to purchase that property.
And if the TIF does not go through, then the general fund would pay back the TIF.
Correct. Okay, it's just,
Understood.
I'm confused.
No.
These TIF funds-
Let's hope that the TIF does generate enough employment where we have development where we're having issues, and we can look at making distributions from the TIF. So, our hope is that this TIF works and that it generates employment opportunities where we
And
generate.
I understand that, but, when it comes down to it, we're based on property tax.
Yeah, right now,
You can sell a bunch of retail stuff in here, and you're gonna reap the benefits of local and state sales tax and all that other kind of stuff. And we're still sitting on
right now,
$9 a year from
but right now we don't have that.
60 unit center that requires us to respond numerous times a year.
And 5 years ago when we, all right. And 5 years ago when we set up the TIF, we were hoping that we'd have development by this time, and unfortunately we don't. But
And like I said,
the big thing is
even with development brings issues for us.
Yeah.
Development means that it's unfunded. It's another unfunded mandate that we have to do. That we have to protect that stuff without receiving the funds to do it. And
Right now,
it's concerning me and for every resident of our fire district.
right now, nothing's going on.
So
Yep.
I have a concern.
Okay.
I hear mentioning that some federal government funds are used for some development within Sherwood Road. And I think the basic thing that's happening here is the attempt to develop enough property to create the money to pay for the village operation.
No.
Basically, over time, I think the village is trying to develop themselves. And clearly, you've got property that's been around for decades, and it's not a desirable development. So, trying to develop.
Yeah, we're not using federal funds. That was we received federal money to extend Galena to municipal. That was done 11 years ago. We're not using TIF money to help operate the general fund. So, a couple erroneous statements there. So,
Okay.
what we're trying to do is help bring in additional
Diversify the tax base.
Yep.
I understand that, but I think the village needs to look at how they can reduce their expenses.
We're going to start the budget process in about a month, and you're more than welcome to come. But a lot of our expenses are employee generated. It's police and the just day-to-day maintenance of the village. So
certainly, if you develop more property, let's say within the TIF district, that's going to create more road traffic. One of the things I've heard is the village has basically unfunded road requirements. they don't have enough money to fix the roads they got. So building more commercial business, which generates traffic to get there, creates more road maintenance expense. So I think the village needs to look at the direction they're going in and try and deal with a different focus on cutting expenses, finding more efficient stuff instead of trying to develop the village out of this situation.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Just one last statement. So something I prepared previously still pertains, but so we want to talk about TIF 2. TIF's broader purpose is for the redevelopment of the existing lands, not the subsidy for new development within the community. Based on the previous use of TIF funds, it's my current opinion and my current understanding that the expansion of TIF 2 will result in the subsidy of private investment in our community as opposed to broader investment made by the public for the public good. This resulted in a diversion of public funds for private use. A recent study by David Merriam in the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy showed that the overall average, even in sugar growth, that TIF districts and their expansion do not fulfill their main goal of economic development. The broader argument must be made that if existing TIFs didn't spur development, then the expansion of the TIF will do the same. This means that the overall problem is with the city, its policies, regulation, ability to properly budget, and the approach to attracting the development in the first place. We need to look at other ways in which we can attract development without producing the shadow-type budgets and private subsidies that accompany TIFs.
Okay. Any other comment?
One question.
Okay, go ahead.
Will the end date of the TIFs be extended, or is it now fixed? It's
No.
always fixed?
Yeah. From when the original TIFs were started.
And how long is that?
2038. 23 years from 2015.
I'm hearing a couple of things. First of all, I hear a lot of hope, we wish, and you're putting a lot of money into infrastructure where you really don't have a commitment from development, which will guarantee it. You have time to do feasibility studies.
Yep.
And I think that rather than putting the money in first, hoping somebody comes, throw it out there saying, if we have this money invested, are you going to consider our land? Number one. Number two, I think that
to your point, we are pursuing that. We're not putting any money into it at this point. We are talking.
Because
but
I think
to your point,
you need to have a commitment before, otherwise you're doing a crapshoot. And
exactly.
I hear that. Number two, I think that there is an expansion of development westward in the Chicagoland area that has been natural for decades. And I think that people are moving west, and we are at that border, at that edge of Aurora and farmland. And I think that there really is no other place for people to go except to look at the land in Sugar Grove now, because we're the next step forward in what I feel is a natural development. And then the third thing...
to your point there, well, we had a Prager study done in 1999, and Mr. Prager did a great job and talked about the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And one of the great things he pointed out is we have all the property that you could want. But to develop that property is expensive, and that's where...
Exactly, but I think, and that's my
and
first
that's
point.
where the TIF comes in.
Because where else are they going to go except up, and then you're going to build a skyscraper in Aurora. And then the third thing that I'm thinking of and I'm hearing is the fiasco that happened with Mayor Daley in Chicago selling the parking lots. I mean, that was quick money for him, and they're committed for close to 100 years now, and they are suffering because of that quick money.
We don't have any assets that we can sell.
But my point is you do. You have the TIP funds that you can use that are locking up your tax base for 20 years.
Right, yeah.
And that is, in my mind, the same kind of trade-off. And if it's zero sum, it doesn't make sense to have a crapshoot, but to really study the issue and get a commitment first is all I'm trying to say.
You have a committed board, and that we would evaluate any TIF money that's spent. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. I'd like to close the TIF open public hearing. And so we've done the presentation and the TIF amendment. Okay, we'll continue right into the board meeting. And if you want to leave, you're not going to offend us. You've been very patient, and we're going to just roll on to the agenda. Appointments and presentations, there are none. Why don't we just take a quick 5-minute recess in case people want to leave. Okay? We'll reconvene at 6:35. Thank you. All right. Again, thank you for your patience and for participating. So we have no appointments or presentations. Any public comments on items scheduled for action? Under tonight's consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes, vouchers, treasurer's report, resolution authorizing the furnace replacement, ordinance, 2 ordinances amending, authorizing the annexation agreement amendments under general business, talked about well 10 rehab, and a final plat of subdivision outside the village, and then discussion of Finley homes and meeting rooms. Any comments on any of those items? Yes.
Just to make sure it's okay to comment on the Finley Homes permit fees at this point in time?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw that item come up, and I just wanted to make sure the board considered that, because in the recommendation from the village staff, it says the cost is only opportunity cost, not being able to raise fees in the future. I think it's incumbent upon everybody to realize that the housing market in Sugar Grove is relatively small. I went to Realtor.com hour ago and looked, and there were 77 single-family homes for sale per Realtor.com, I think it was. And when I restricted that to the age just arbitrarily of 20 years old or less, because that's when these fees generally kicked in, there were 30-some properties. Each and every one of those properties had a higher impact fee. And if we arbitrarily now waive the fee, when people who lived in the village for a decade or 2 are trying to sell their properties, you're asking that class of property owner to eat that potential profit or take a loss. And you're allowing the developer who owns 5 or 10 or 50 parcels, I don't know how many, to potentially have that fee waived. And immediately, that home goes on the market, and this artificial cost, instead of $33,000 and $17,000, a $300,000 home, that's a huge percentage. And so I want you to really consider that, because I love the village, came here in 2005, my home's still underwater. I think there's a lot of people in my situation. My home had those full impact fees. My neighbor's house is for sale right now. If he could sell it and the village would give him 10 grand back, maybe he could sell it easier. But we're not going to do that.
Right.
So, I think I just wanted to point this out and make sure that this is a zero-sum game. New properties compete against existing properties, and I don't think there's an inherent value like a commercial property bringing the service that's necessary to the village when you're looking at residential property development. The resolution says that the village set the rates not arbitrarily, but based on anticipated costs. So essentially, what you'd be doing is subsidizing a current developer or future resident at the expense of existing residents. So I'd like you to think really carefully about that before you set that precedent.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Close that portion. May I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any requests to remove an item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Herring.
Aye.
Trustee Montalto.
Aye.
Trustee Lindy. Aye. Trustee Cook.
Aye.
Trustee Coleman. Aye. Trustee Walter.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. Under general business, may I get a motion to approve a resolution authorizing well number 10 rehab?
Motion. Second.
Okay, Brad?
the recommendation of Lane Christensen and the electrical engineer to remove it at this time for inspection and to rehab it. Basically, like we did well 11. This well's had over 14 years of service, so it's overdue.
Okay.
So, based on the success with Lane Christensen in the past, we recommend using Rose Basin.
And there's some funds that are being spent from savings and other water projects.
Yes.
This is where the funding's coming from.
Is the pump being rehabbed? Because the fire was with the pump.
The pump and motor, but it's controls for the pump and motor. So.
And I asked Brent this, there is a backup, is there not a backup?
There's a backup motor.
So, I don't know what the expense
So
is for the
basically-
rehab, I guess.
So basically, when the well was drilled and constructed, that was during all the busy time of growth, so the motor wasn't available, a new motor. So Lane provided us with a remanufactured one. Once our motor was available, it was delivered to the site, and it's been sitting there in the crate and shipped. So the motor is a mute subject. It's the pump and the cable and all that stuff that we get sent out first.
Okay.
So, and it's really unknown what the cost is going to be yet as far as repairing the pump till they get a part inspected.
Well, we do have a pump to use in.
The motor.
Yeah.
Replacement motors.
All right. Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Cindy.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Trustee Lindy?
Aye.
Trustee Cronin? Aye. Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion to approve a resolution approving the final plat of subdivision on Finley Road and unincorporated Sugar Grove.
Motion.
Second.
Walter?
Yeah, very simply, this is an existing lot that for some inexplicable reason has Finley Road running through it. It was never dedicated, and the county is exerting its influence on the property owner to get it dedicated, and by doing so, he's subdividing the lot. Otherwise, nothing changes with the property. So we're taking the position that it's pretty much housekeeping.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none, roll call, please, Cindy.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Trustee Cronin? Aye. Trustee Lindy? Aye. Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Discussion on Fay Homes permits. We have Keith with us. Thank you for being here. Walter? Brent?
Sure, I'll go. I guess village staff, obviously we try to keep our eye on what's going on in the community and realize that Keith built a home on Snow Street almost a year ago, I believe it was.
Around March of 19.
Okay, and that it remains for sale. So we did reach out to him to talk about what kind of traffic he's getting, what kind of the showing is. But prior to that conversation, one of the things that we realized is that when that the lot he owns in Prairie Glen still fell under the original annexation agreement as amended, and still went under essentially the old fee schedule. And so when he did pull his permit, he paid roughly $33,000 in permit fees. And that was significantly higher than typical fees have been charged for several years in the village, including in Prairie Glen. I'm drawing a blank right now on the builder that came in there and bought the lots, and I know Orleans. Yeah, when Orleans came in, we did an amended annexation agreement that reduced their fees. We did the same thing in Meadowridge Villas. We've done it in multiple subdivisions around the village. Settlers Ridge with Pulte Homes, Hanford Farm, and basically we recognize the village did, at this point, pushing on 10 years ago, that after the Great Recession, the housing market cannot support the fee structure that was in place prior to that. And the idea was primarily in the existing subdivisions that there's a benefit to finish those out. you know, the existing homeowners, there is a burden, if you will, in many cases of having vacant lots in the condition they're kept in. We are made aware that homeowners associations, typically the improvements that they fund are in place and the number of lots paying toward it. If they're not built on, they're paying a reduced fee. And so the idea was to generate some housing activity, and the village recognized that and reduced the fees really village-wide. There are cases such as this where they don't fall under an existing amended agreement, and so it reverted back to the original or the one before that, and resulted in the higher fees. In our conversations with Keith, he certainly did, there's no shock, say that that those higher fees are reflected in the price that he's seeking for that home. It does have an impact on his ability to sell it. At the staff level, quite frankly, we felt that consideration was due to give him a credit to reduce that down to a similar fee that is being paid throughout the community. And then further to look at looking into 2020 is to carrying a slight increase on that fee going forward, similar to the increase we have built into Settlers Ridge, which is based on the engineering cost index, but roughly 2%. And the idea being that in our conversations with Keith, rather than a refund, we're suggesting a credit. He does own additional lots over there. He's expressed confidence that he can build homes over there successfully. He certainly can speak for himself. He's here, but some of the things he's learned on the building of that home, some minor tweaks to make future homes more marketable, and the reduction in fees certainly would be part of that package. So what staff's suggesting is that we do issue a credit to him that he could use toward an additional permit, and that we use that in the report. I think there's $17,850 is kind of our standard or base fee in other projects throughout the village. Settlers Ridge actually has a lower fee now because they have credits due to the water system improvements that were put in many years ago that still carry forward. So there are different situations where we have to look at those each one. And then if it was a larger group, we could look at amending annexation agreement amendments if appropriate for a number of lots, or we could do what we're doing in Hannaford Farm right now on the majority of the lots there, as we did tonight. We're doing individual annexation agreement amendments, and that would certainly be a path to go forward. So again, he's here, and I'm sure he's willing to talk about his experience so far in Sugar Grove, and we can bring it forward for your consideration.
Is there any questions for staff?
I validate you because I understand what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of us in Sugar Grove that are in that boat. But at the same time, I do live in a neighborhood that is underdeveloped, and I feel like there is a little bit of an obligation by the village to try to grow those areas so that the people that are living there aren't living next to vacant land or dirt piles or whatever till the dawn of time. So if we can spur some residential development, as we know, we increase our residents, we get more MFT money, there's benefits to that. We might get some more children in our schools. So I hear you, I hear what you're saying, I do. But I also know that it's, Sugar Grove is a beautiful place to live, and our permit fees are high. And if we can reduce that for someone and get it more in line with what other people are paying, that's really what it is. He paid an astronomical amount of money for his permit.
I built all over Northern Illinois, and I've never paid half of that.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I didn't do enough due diligence on my end. I called the village and said, hey, what's your average residential permit fee? Oh, it's going to run about $16,000 to $18,000, depending on what size house and whatnot. However, if you're in Hannaford Farm, there's an additional fee. But other than that, it's $18,000. So I went ahead and purchased my lot. It's going to be $18,000 permit, and then jaw dropped. And at that point, I was just in it too deep. Lots were purchased, plans were drawn, engineering was done, construction loan was open. It's like we're all in at this point. So, but there's a good possibility I would not have proceeded with the purchase of those lots if I knew that permit was over $30,000.
And I agree with Jen. I think that although I understand the situation you're in and what you're saying, but we can't base development today on what was going on in the 2005 market, because prior to that 08 crash, housing was going for a ton more money, and it justified higher fees. And unfortunately, homes dropped about 40%, right after 08, and it stayed that way for a long time. And the fact is that it does bring in, all the businesses that we've had trouble bringing in, they're counting rooftops. Rooftops, they need so many rooftops before they'll put up a building. And when they put up the building, that brings that brings the retail sales and stuff like that, and that's what we need to offset our property taxes. Get some more retail and industrial and diversify our tax base. So it all based on rooftops. So we really have to bring those rooftops in to make other things happen, and in the long run, it's going to benefit all of us tax-wise.
I think it's also about streamlining him, isn't it? I mean, unfortunately, you're up here when everybody else is kind of here, so we're just kind of bringing you back to the rest.
Well,
you're not getting any special treatment. You're just,
Well, it's not fair that somebody can go to Pulte's $16,000 a head before the shovel even gets put in the ground. I mean, I'm a small guy. I can't compete with Pulte because they're a national company as it is, and then to take a $17,000 haircut before I even put the shovel in the ground, that's just unheard of.
All right. It's just discussion only, but any other comments or questions? I'm in favor of the refund as I do. Point well taken, but this will bring us in, and then there is talk of amending our fees to.
Well, there's been some discussion about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea would be that this. I'm trying to be careful choosing my words because, as we all know, there's so many different development agreements, for each subdivision, each situation. So it is kind of there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to say, hey, we'll just bring back an ordinance or resolution that says these are this now. It doesn't work that simply, but the intent is that we effectively get there, and it may be a combination, like I say, of amending either existing agreements or just saying, look, as each one comes forward, we can tell people up front this is what it's going to be, but part of that process is just like the two we did tonight, those have become routine at this point where, we public hearing, everybody knows what it's about. It happens as a matter of routine. I think, I believe my understanding is the main issue, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if that is going to be essentially the policy, at least for 2020, to establish a fee at that level, we want to make sure builders are aware of that.
Yes, absolutely.
So whatever, we'll talk with Laura and the different circumstances about what's the right method, from the legal perspective, but separate from that, we'll make sure, assuming this goes forward, that word gets out, from putting things on our website. If there are any existing codes that need to be amended, we will bring those back. But I think it's going to be more of annexation agreement amendments ultimately to put it in place. But we can certainly, let the interested buyers and the builders know that that's what the structure will be.
My concern is somebody might be looking to build in Sugar Grove, and they might look online to see what our fees are, and then if they see.
Right now it's very difficult to even figure out what they are. So I think the idea would be to make this kind of, for lack of a better, front page.
Yeah.
Item. So this is what it is.
Yeah, I think this is marketing Sugar Grove, so we need to market it us in a favorable light.
So I'm thinking we'll bring it back if we need some type of formal thing. We'll bring it back with that. If a formal item is required right now, it would be at a later annexation. Would the preference be just to go forward, or to bring it back just to confirm that's what the board wants to do? If you're comfortable with it tonight, we can move forward and not bring anything formal until necessary. Or if you want to contemplate, we can bring it back. Bring it back.
Yeah, look into it a little bit more.
Okay.
I think it's pretty ambiguous right now.
Sure.
With the formal process.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Keith, for being here.
No, thank you.
Yep. Meeting minutes.
Can we let's discuss this, bring it back in January to see how things were going and
we were satisfied with the presentation of the village and the audio, and just confirm that. And to give us the okay to go ahead and update code to reflect how the minutes will be done in the future. Because right now they just say the clerk will keep a journal and doesn't give any details as to what should be in the minutes. So, anybody has any comments, questions on how the minutes are done?
I think it's working. I think that I made a comment when I was talking to Brent that I think you can still hear it, but usually when I speak, I'm speaking to all of you. So when I turn my face away from the recorder, it gets a little muffled where I can hear Sean, very clearly. But you can still, if you want to hear it, you can still hear it. So I think it's working.
And I do apologize, the December 17th meeting will not be audio on because I messed up the recorder because Allison has an emergency and she always does that. But now we work together and I know how to work that recorder, so we're good.
Can we, I don't have a problem having shorter, notes and everything as long as there's a recording. Do we need to put that information in the ordinance on how we do the minutes that we would like to provide an audio recording available to the public?
We can do that. I don't know if it's easier to put it in this one or to update. We have a resolution for executive session minutes, and that was the procedures that we were going to internally follow was what we have to do for executive session minutes. So we could just update that resolution to just say any audio recordings of the village board meeting and closed session.
I mean, you don't necessarily require it to make it available, but it certainly can formalize it and make it part of your standard minimum.
I'd like to make that as part of the standard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Any comments on that? All right. Thank you. No other comments, so we'll move forward. Staff reports. Any questions for staff? Pat, maybe it's just the time of year, but has there been reduced truck traffic on 47 since the interchange is open? That you...
I think it's the time of the year.
Okay.
It's hard to gauge it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It seems like traffic's down, but I thought it could be.
I can give feedback regarding turning off of Merrill Road in the morning and taking a left to get to Harder.
Okay.
It used to be, I would wait and I would, coach the kids and say, okay, this is dangerous road condition, don't pull out now because, that'll kill you, that 18-year-old. It seems like it's easier to go left there, so it seems like that whatever's heading southbound is getting on the exchange. There's still a few cars, but not like it was.
Yeah.
So.
And if you think about it, maybe a lot of those cars were heading down to
Right.
hit the 56 to go,
Right.
so now they're using the interchange.
Right.
Feedback's been positive. The people that have used it say it knocks off 10 to 15 minutes from their trip, so that's positive, but I didn't know if we've seen any type of...
There is one detrimental thing. People getting off coming from the east if they're going west, they seem to forget there's a stop sign.
Oh, yeah.
in the ramp.
That's been that way for 40 years.
No, this is coming from the new off ramp, they
Yeah.
don't stop.
Yeah, okay.
We've been cut off at least 3 or 4 times.
Really? Okay, that's good to know. It is well illuminated, but that's...
Oh, yeah, it's very well.
Speaking of turning left, do we use that, I know we haven't for a long time, that box we've got hanging off the stop sign at Prairie 47?
We do not.
Right, is there any, can we yank that off of there, it's kind of hanging on an angle?
Sure.
And I don't know if it's a PW thing, I think it's probably an IDOT thing, but right by that same stop sign of 47 of Prairie, it would be the northeast corner. There's been a toilet sitting there for about a month now. I don't know if IDOT could pick it up, or we could pick it up, or it's kind of, it's not a construction porta potty, it's just a toilet. It looks like it fell off or something, it's been there for like a month.
Just call it beautification, plant some plants in it, it'll be great.
There you go, finders keepers.
They do it down the creek.
And thank the police department for, I've seen them out there the last couple of mornings again, because turners were starting up again in the morning. It's good to see them addressing it. So.
And Matt's report, I was curious when the construction, I mean, it looks like we got 25% of the grant money came in from Camp Dean. So, any anticipation on when we think that project will start?
Hopefully we get it completed. The goal is to get it completed this year. There was a proposal from a paving company that would have, I want to say it was in the neighborhood of $15,000 above the grant amount. So we did reach out to Rich Harvest Farms to see if they had interest in helping fund that. We have not had a response. Then I think we'll reach out to the businesses along there as well and say, hey, we got 50,000, and to do it. I don't even want to say do it right, because we know the right answer is several $100,000, but to do I guess a better Band-Aid on it is roughly $15,000 more than the funds available in that ballpark. And are they willing to help fund it?
I guess what that leads into is turn lanes on the same kind of time frame.
But what was
the turn lanes on Jugan and on Garden Road for into Rich Harvest Farms. That money has been 25% funded as well.
Brad and Michelle, if you happen to know if they went out and bid on that or not. I mean, that was not a different engineering firm was leading that, because they were private. Yeah, it was a private improvement at the same time, so that's being completely on the Dugan Road one. So I guess I would characterize them as separate bids, but all being done at the same time with the hope to get reduced prices. So I apologize, I can't remember if they're out to bid right now. If not, we'll go out to bid soon.
I do know Camp Dean, if you can get that road done before summer, because then you have the resident camp, so you're getting multiple cars going down to Girl Scout camp, all driving down there, but you know which part of Shoe Road is part of the road. You drive down there. And, it's bad. But it gets a lot of traffic when summer starts and they start their resident camp. And they camp, because cars are going, twice a day, a lot of them.
Good point.
Hey, ask one more thing.
Sure.
I don't know if Matt or Brad could answer this, and I want to bring it up because somebody asked me, and I didn't know the answer. Under the vouchers tonight, there was a question about, I'm sure it was probably a public works expense. It was in Yorkville, Napa, and there were some for our AutoZone here in town. And the question was, why are we shopping out of town for auto stuff if we got our auto parts in town? I'm sure there's some explanation. I just wonder what it is.
AutoZone doesn't really support the heavy truck stuff.
That explains it then.
Okay. The plow trucks and stuff like that.
I knew there was a good explanation.
Homeowner style car stuff, so.
Okay.
We've forever had a relationship with Elbert and Sugar or York Napa. Yeah. We have been using AutoZone when we can.
I kind of figured that's what it was, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none. Trustees, Heidi?
Girl Scout season starting tomorrow.
Are you ordering or shipping?
Ordering.
It's ordering.
Yeah.
Order.
I know.
The initial orders, they started digital cookie, where you could do it online earlier, but the official for this service center starts Wednesday on the 8th, where the girls will go out with their little cards where you can fill in, and then they'll be coming in the week after Valentine's Day. So, new cookie out this week. Lemon up. They got rid of the Savannah Smiles, and so they got another lemon cookie, which is really good.
Yes.
Nothing for me.
Sean? Nothing for me. Rick?
Only thing I have is the issue that I talked about last time, I think, about the showmobile in Fox Valley Park District. I got an email today, and I've been emailing back and forth with the township and the Park District and things like that about what's going on with it. And the email from Jim Pilmer, the executive director of Fox Valley, said they have made the decision to dispose of it. It's going to go up for public auction. But prior to that, we're going to have a meeting of anyone who's interested from the 10 towns that are part of the Convention Bureau, of which we are one, and Aurora, and I could go on, but at any rate, the meeting is Friday the 17th from 2 to 3 at the Fox Valley office there, Park District office, and they're going to do a presentation on what it takes to basically run one of these as a private entity and put out the discussion if the 10 towns or some of the towns in the Convention Bureau want to get together, somebody be a lead agency, and everybody fund it together and use it together. If not, right afterwards, it's going up on the public site for auction. So Karen Pritchard from the Park District is going to attend. Tom Rowe, I asked Sean before the meeting if he'd attend on my behalf because I'm going to be in Arizona starting Thursday through the 19th, so I won't be back till 2 days after that meeting. So if we want to find out what the costs are, what it'll take to do it, if somebody's willing to step forward and be the agency to kind of manage it, they'll probably show up at that meeting. So other than that, I've got nothing.
Ryan, anything?
Nothing. I could hear you all loud and clear. So recording is good when it's live.
Okay, that's good to hear. Jen?
No, I have nothing going on.
All right. I've been following up with our state legislator on the widening of Route 47 between Sugar Grove and Yorkville. They say that IDOT is still negotiating the phase 2 with the consultant. It's taken about 9 months. So I'm pushing to get that phase 2 signed as soon as possible so that we can keep that project moving. So any help from the residents is greatly appreciated. I've contacted the City of Yorkville as well to hopefully keep this project moving. And then any update on the Hanford Park transfer?
I would say there's a question that we're trying to work through.
Oh,
so
all right. Okay.
Probably best just to leave it at that. Actually, we were talking about it earlier tonight.
Oh.
But yeah, hopefully soon.
Good. Okay. Any other public comments? Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You were first and you're in the middle of it.
Matt?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's a new year and I had totally planned on talking about something different until a lot of the conversation tonight. So it was going to be about marijuana and warehouses, but now we'll talk about something different. So my initial question was going to be, so what's up with Crown? But as opposed to just asking that question, I guess let's just start the new year with, so where do we hope to go with Crown? So at the end of the year, we heard a lot about them approaching Elder and trying to kind of work, their way on that property through Elburn. I guess my question now would be, is it time to talk to Crown about, I know that Marv is very, hell-bent on warehouses, and this is what, the only thing he wants to do. But what we're hearing is that school enrollment is down, rooftops. You said it yourself tonight, and it was in the back of my mind that, well, we're being told that we need more houses, we need more rooftops to bring in more business. So at this point, can there be a conversation with Crown about how if you go back to your original plan? Maybe it's not estate homes, maybe it's more moderately priced homes. You have Hannaford that's trying to finish, their subdivision. You have Settlers Ridge, which is a totally different market. Is there something new in home building that Crown could possibly create? Is it a different style of home? It doesn't have to be a Hannaford farm priced home or Settlers Ridges or something in between. So I guess the question is, A, any news from Crown? B, any news from Crown and Elburn? And C, can we start a different conversation with them this year about, there's so much opposition to the warehouse plan. We want you in Sugar Grove. To Joe's point, work with Crown, get them to do something here. If we need rooftops, if we need kids for our schools, then maybe talking about home development is something that we should approach them with. Is that something that...
Already been done. I did it when we had our hour meetings with them. I asked them if they would build the homes first before developing the other stuff. And their response to me was no, because there's no market for it now. And I explained to them, I used the analogy of Sun City, Arizona, when they built that in the 60s. I said, that guy came in, was the first 55 and over community in the country. And before he built a house, he built the rec centers, he built the parks, he built all the amenities. Then he started building homes and had them all sold within like that. And I said, would you, to appease the people that live in the area, to show that you're going to do a buffer, start with the homes first, and then worry about stuff behind those homes? And he said, no, because the homes are 5 to 10 years out. He says, there's not a market for homes right now, or subdivisions, so he would not do it.
Okay, well, like I said, this is a new year, new conversations. And actually, everything that I've been reading is that home development is rising. That homes are being built again, that the slump isn't over. I don't think it's ever going to be over. I don't think we're ever going to see what we saw before. But that, yes, people are wanting to buy homes. So that may have been the conversation last year. And I'm not saying, oh, build the homes first and then build those ugly-ass warehouses. I'm saying scrap the warehouses and come up with some new plan. We have a lot of property. 760 acres is a monumental piece of property to do something with. Create something new. They're smart people. They've built beautiful neighborhoods. And again, can it be something completely different? And I'm not saying senior living. Before we were saying, oh, well, how about, what's in Huntley? Delwood. Yeah, but apparently we need kids. We need kids in our schools. So
Why?
Why do we need kids in our schools? I just read an article that Kaneland's school district overall has been declining and continues to decline.
So lower expenses then.
For the last
Why
10
you have
years.
more kids? I don't know, I'm just thinking.
Because your class sizes, unless you get to a certain, I'm not a teacher, I'm not even, but unless you're, but if their max class size is 26, then in theory, Sean, you can bring it down, but you still need a teacher for what, 20? I don't know.
But the class sizes are creeping up.
So
what's happening is you're putting more kids in each classroom. Yeah.
Which would mean there would be
My school's up. Other schools are down. Yeah.
So then close the school that we're paying for. If you're saying why have more kids, and I know this is not a topic for this board, but then close the school. Close Harder Middle School. If you're saying, well, we don't need more kids, well then we need to close the school and get that off of our tax bill. So again, this is just, pardon me?
I just didn't know how that works as far as maybe it makes sense to bring them in. I didn't understand how it works with school classes and sizes and stuff like that. So.
Well, I think the idea is to grow the village. You don't want to grow it only with 50 and older.
Sure.
That turns into a retirement community. You want a diverse base of residents. So, and like I said, my neighbor told me a year ago that, her son is just turned 12. She told me a year ago about how, our schools are declining in students. I don't have kids, so I'll be honest. I'm not, whatever we do with schools, it's not going to affect me. But you hear it from everybody in Sugar Grove that the big panic is how our school side or enrollment numbers are dropping. So Sean, I would look at you and say, is that an issue? It sounds like it is an issue from a school district point of view.
I think what you want with the school district is you want to have more businesses, more rooftops. That puts more money into the school district.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily having more kids, but you want more growth to fund everything. And I think if you continue to have growth, regardless of if it was families or retired folks or folks, empty nesters, things like that, or retail, that does great things for the school, and it doesn't put another kid in there that you have to fund for that kid.
Well, I tell you what, Crown can sell a house to whoever they want.
Yeah.
Whether they have kids, they don't want kids, whatever they want to do, if they want to build some kind of beautiful neighborhood on 760 acres, is that a conversation that can be had? I understand that in those meetings, a lot of those things were talked about, but to encourage them to stay here, what can we do? If the only thing that they want to do is warehouses and they can't do it with us, and I don't know what Elburn's position is, what we're hearing Elburn is not all that interested, but who knows? I mean, if they can't build warehouses on either side of the town line, then let's work with them to build something that benefits our community.
Continue to be creative. There's nothing wrong with asking them to have that discussion.
So, well, and I guess not just asking the question, but actually putting heads together and coming up with a creative plan and drawing them in to do the same thing. I mean, I worry that if we just sit silent and let them, go off and do whatever they're doing. So the question still remains, have we heard anything from them?
We have. I talk to Marv maybe once a month just to see if they've heard anything, and we've told them that we're open to different plans. So one is residential.
And what do we know about Elburn? Anything?
At least what I know about Elburn is that I spoke briefly with Crown representatives at the 8847 grand opening, whatever we call that.
The ribbon cutting.
Yeah, and it was the same answer. They're continuing to pursue an annexation corridor at Elburn by working through property owners along the way. They continue to pursue all options as their standard answer. It hasn't changed. They continue to be interested in trying to figure out something that works in Sugar Grove. They continue to believe that they need multiple options, in any type of approval because, they don't know what the market's going to be over the time frame to fill that land. We had talked about warehouses, but I'm sure they're certainly still interested in that. We had a brief conversation in regards to, potential for a data center, and they'd love to see a data center up there. I mean, essentially, they're open to anything that they, leads them toward selling their property or developing it and making money.
Because they would have to sell the property for this whole data center thing, which is really controlled by somebody else.
Right. Portions of it or all of it, who knows? Right. Type of thing. The one thing I can say that maybe, I guess it's positive, I don't know how far it goes, is Elburn's Plan Commission is meeting tonight, and on their agenda is their update to their comprehensive land use plan. Mm-hmm. And so it is a draft, and it's before their plan commission, and I believe Elburn officials had said that they were not interested in considering a boundary agreement while the comprehensive plan is being updated. So it's good to see that that is moving along, and within the plan, I'll quote from it because I have it right here. There is a statement in the draft plan: the Village of Elburn does not seek to expand beyond its current planning jurisdiction and does not envision annexation to the newly improved I-88/Route 47 intersection.
I saw that.
That is not, that's a draft plan for the Plan Commission. So I think that for the village anyway, we would love to see that language carry through to the approved amended comprehensive plan. And I think we're hopeful that that would be, if that's completed and that's, accurately reflects where they're at, that they would consider boundary agreement at that time. But that's all.
I have a feeling that statement was just so that a million people would show up at their meeting tonight to ask what you're doing with ground. So, but that's just my opinion. And about minutes, and about minutes.
Okay. Okay, other public?
Yes, me.
You don't have to, you can do it right there if you like.
I don't have to go to the
No.
podiums where I don't fit over it. You just see my head and there's an off with her head or something like that. Hi, how are you? Good. Happy New Year to you too. I want to personally, publicly thank the Road and Streets Commissioner, or let's put it this way, Brad, for painting road crossing signs from my street corner over to the post office and from my street corner over to 47. It has made a big difference. Matter of fact, I've had people stop when I'm still on the sidewalk, allowing me to go across. Not stopping while I'm going across, but stopping before I even head over there. Because it's brightly notified and everybody sees it. But that brings a question to my hand, and maybe, Brad, you know, 47. Those crossing lanes are not well marked anymore. Is it the state's responsibility?
They're gonna repave 47 this summer, so they should remark them.
So that would be, so I don't have to call that guy back.
It'll be smooth and restriped.
Well,
Okay.
I called him, but he said one of the things you're gonna have to do with those left-hand or right-hand turns, you know what I mean? 47 goes north and south. Okay, if you're going south, you can go into town with a turn. If you're going north, you can go into my subdivision with a turn. Especially on the one where they're going into town, you may have a truck, and it's happened time after time after time, standing in the inside lane that's going straight, and I can't see people coming on that little lane. So I have to stop at the truck to peek over to make sure that I'm not going to get run over. Because they don't stop. Even if the stoplight is on, they do not stop. They just like that. And maybe if we can I'll talk to IDOT and maybe we can get a yield at least put it down on that, which would be much better than anything else. And then Pat would have a reason to ticket them.
Any other public comment?
Hey, how about that, Pat? Thank you
So I
very
see
much.
that the printed agenda says the meeting today started at 5:30. Had dinner at Fireside Sunday night, and a little scrolling sign outside 47 and Cross Street at that point in time said it was 6 p.m. and online, when I looked today to make sure I come at the right time, it said 6 p.m. as well. So I don't know where the disconnect came from. Clearly, you planned it starting at 5:30, but the public information basically said 6 p.m. as a couple of days ago and today. So if you can try to fix that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Clerk, yes. Thank you.
Can I add one thing real fast about that intersection that she was speaking about? So I don't know, Brad, I mean, when I'm bringing my children home from school and I get to the traffic light, there is a little girl every day that crosses 47 on, I guess if I'm on Main, she's on the north side. And we get the turn light and everything gets backed up there. And the buses don't seem to stop when they're coming in front of, I guess that's Jill Street, so Snow Street. They just go through that intersection and keep going. When you get to that traffic light and you take a left, she gets the walk, and we get the green arrow. And so she's halfway across the intersection. It's happened to me where I've stopped in the middle of the intersection so that she can continue to go because she's got her countdown happening. But we already have green to turn left. And she does it every day. And I just worry that that little girl's going to be killed because someone's not paying attention. Do you know what I'm saying? She gets it every day. I mean, she walks it on the north, she crosses there. And a lot of families do, but she crosses by herself after school on the north side of the road there.
Yeah, so I think I understand what you're saying is you're going to head eastbound on Cross Street to go northbound on 47.
Yes.
And she's on the north side of the crosswalk.
Yes.
Typically, when you do come to intersections, they're not necessarily triggered by pedestrian crossings that control any of the lights. So it's obviously consistent with the way the traffic is flowing for either the turn lane to turn left and go northbound or go straight. As a driver or a motorist, you need to yield to anyone that's in the crosswalk. And I understand the concern of what's happening. It looks like you got the full control to turn left. But she has the right of way to be in the crosswalk.
The problem is she crosses, she gets basically to the median, the green light's happening, so people are pulling out, and I've done it too, and then I see her, and I stop, and she keeps going. My fear is, when it's crazy to get out of there when the buses are coming and don't stop on snow. So parents are trying to get out of the school, and it just gets gridlock. And then anyway, then you get there and you're just trying to get going with traffic again. I'm just fearful for her.
Thank you. Now I'll have an opportunity to take a look. Is that in the afternoon?
Afternoon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's good. Any other discussion? Okay.
I'm sorry, I meant to ask while I was up there, is there any news on the park and 47 lights?
We've received letters of support from our elected officials throughout the state. We're submitting those to IDOT and talking to our state reps to see what the next process is.
They haven't rejected it or anything? I mean, is it still just kind of sitting?
IDOT is
IDOT.
not in favor of it, so that's why we went out and got these letters of support.
So when you say they're not in favor of it, do they decline it?
In a sense, yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, we're doing all our research and our, feasibilities, and we've talked to IDOT, and they did not say that they're really inclined to approve it. So instead of going through a lot of expenses and being turned down, we heard what they're saying. Now we're trying to rally the troops and get support for it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
You had mentioned earlier that 47 was going to be repaid if you were like in likeness or.
Yeah, IDOT went out to bid earlier or late last year, and have plans in the office, but from Finley Road all the way down to Route 30. So basically, the whole township, 6 miles of 47 are scheduled to be repaid this summer.
We're not widening it yet to 4 lanes. They're just repaving what we currently have.
Okay. Any other? Okay. Was that portion? Airport report?
No report.
Okay. Like to get a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss personnel per exception of the Open Meetings Act and to adjourn from there.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Marcolta.
Aye.
Trustee Heron.
Aye.
Trustee Cook.
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Coleman. Trustee Walter.
All right, Walter, I'm going to disconnect you now.
Thank you all for attending.